Hello, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and we are in our studio. As you can see, we've got a slightly different vlog for you today. We thought that it would be interesting, maybe, hopefully, to do a little kind of interview moment, as it were, with each of us. So Noel and I and Adam, who were playing the parts in the 1984 tour that we have just finished. So we've interviewed each other with a few key questions about what it's like to play those parts.
Introduce yourself and who do you play in 1984?
Yeah, my name's Adam and I play Winston in 1984.
And can you tell us a little bit about the character?
Yes, so Winston is the protagonist of the story, who has clearly been quietly unhappy with the state of things, but has not really done anything about it up until this moment. And at the beginning of the play, he's started writing a diary, but he doesn't really know why. That flows through the story where he finds a bit more courage and kind of builds from there, really.
So who are you and who do you play?
I am Antonia and I play Julia in 1984.
And can you tell us a little bit about the character?
Yes, absolutely. She is a young woman. I like to think she's in her sort of 30s, I reckon. It doesn't actually state her age. She works for the ministry in a department, the fiction department, and she works in porno sec. So she helps fix the machines that make the, I think it's like, she says it's cheap pornography for distribution among the proles. So I'm imagining it's some kind of cheap top shelf magazine, but probably very bland. So that's her job. But she is very much I feel like she's a freedom seeker, or she's already found her freedom within the world that she has to. So she sort of conforms in order to be in a certain way so that she can be free within that. Hello, who are you and who do you play?
Hello, my name's Noel and I play the part of O'Brien.
Can you tell us a little bit about your character?
Yes, O'Brien is a member of the inner party. So in the authoritarian state, the system that's been set up, O'Brien is kind of part of the inner circle of that. We don't really know much about the inner party, except that they, as is revealed slowly throughout the story, they kind of have access to perks and to things like coffee and sugar and stuff that the rest of the party don't have. So while everybody else is living in hardship, it seems as though these guys might be kind of living in luxury, living it up. But we don't really get to know much else about him other than that. He's a little bit of a mysterious figure. What parts of the character do you relate to, and what parts did you find challenging?
I think Winston is a little bit socially awkward, and I do relate to that a fair bit. That was relatively easy for me to come into terms with. The part that I struggled to work with in regards to Winston's character, I think, was probably he's quite easily led. His confidence is misplaced, I think, a lot of the time. So I think, not that I struggled with that as a person, but more that it was more trying to figure out where he's being led, what is his own choices, and like how those affect him and the story and the other characters.
What parts of the character do you relate to, and what did you find challenging?
I definitely relate to her sort of strong independent woman thing. I feel like I've always striven, is that the right way, to be a strong independent woman. I like the fact that she is quite feisty. She's got a lot of personality and she sort of does what she wants to live her in the way that she can live her life well. The things that I find that I found that didn't immediately come easily are that she is a rule breaker, and she's also a risk taker, really, and she lives moment to moment. I'm not like that. I have to plan. I like a plan. I'm not really a rule breaker. I like to pretend I am. I feel like I sort of like to sometimes dress rebelliously to pretend that I'm a rule breaker, but I'm not. I like to follow the rules, really. And I think that the way she lives her life would fill me with acute anxiety. So I had to find a way to, and actually I found her really enjoyable to play because I was like, oh, I wish I could be a bit more like her in that way, to have her freedom and her willingness just to kind of go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this today and never mind what happens. Like, I think she is aware, very aware of the consequences of her actions, but I think it's like the consequences are over there and she very much lives here, and she probably won't really get there ever. Yeah. What parts of the character do you relate to, and what parts do you find challenging?
I think that actually I would probably say that those two things are quite closely connected for this part, because O'Brien is arguably quite an evil character. You would say that he's the villain of the piece, I guess, insofar as there is a human villain. I mean, obviously there's the kind of the wider party and Big Brother, but those are all very intangible. O'Brien sort of represents the human face of that evil, that dark side of the party. However, I think in order to play a part like that, in order to play a villain who, on the face of it, is so cruel to another character and treats someone so horribly, because there's an extended section at the end of the book that probably takes up almost a third of the book, if not more, which is just the interaction between O'Brien and Winston in room 101, where he's really torturing him and putting him through hell. So in order to play that, I think you have to find a way to relate to it, to make it acceptable to yourself, and to try and understand from the character's point of view why they think that this is an acceptable course of action. So I found that very challenging initially, because in order to get started on that, I found it really hard to find a way in. And it sort of clicked for me when I realised that I think he's kind of a zealot. And I often joked when we're in rehearsals and when we're on tour that O'Brien is the hero of the story. But the reason that I make that joke is because I believe that in his head that's true, that he is doing the good work, and that he is he's essentially honest. From his point of view, at least as far as I'm concerned, he's the only character who never lies. All of the other characters pretend they're something they're not, or pretend are duplicitous, whereas he quite carefully chooses his words. Even when he's tricking Winston into joining the resistance, he's quite careful about the way he does it, and he believes that it's for the greater good. So I found that quite difficult to find, but very satisfying when I did get into it. How does the character evolve during the story?
The character evolves. I think he starts off very timid. He's just a cog in the machine, and there is a part of him, I think, that is quite comfortable being a cog in a machine. I imagine it's very easy just to carry on, do the same thing every day. But he grows a confidence, a slightly misplaced confidence at times, I think. So that builds. So I think the change of the character is his confidence grows up until a point, and then it just gets smashed to smithereens, which is a rise to fall.
How does your character evolve during the course of the story?
Well, like I said, at the very beginning, she's pretty free. She's figured out how to live in the world that she lives in, this dystopian world. She's figured out how to toe the line, how to come across as the perfect party member, and yet still have her rebellious affairs and basically do what she wants. So at the beginning, she's the only one of the, so her and O'Brien, in our version, we use puppetry. She's the only one of the party, not the inner party, the party, who doesn't have a puppet because of her freedom. And so she starts out that way. She meets Winston, and I feel like she probably, thinks it's going to be another fling, but she actually falls in love, I believe, with him properly. And they have this different relationship from a relationship she's had before. As a consequence of their relationship and his rebellion and her kind of then complicity with his rebellion, she ends up being arrested. We assume, we don't know, but we assume that she probably gets a similar treatment to Winston, so she ends up in something like Room 101. It's never stated what happens to her exactly. And then at the end of the piece, we see her for the first time with a puppet, so she's been indoctrinated back into the system fully. So she's fully towing the line. So she's no longer has her freedom. She's completely imprisoned. I always think of her like a caged bird at the end. And it makes me really sad, because I think of this lovely bird who sort of flitted around doing what she wants and then has literally been caged by the end. That's how I feel when I put the puppet in front of me. So that's her journey. But in the book, I would say some of that, you have to assume quite a lot of that, or figure it out for yourself, because it's not 100% clear exactly. The beats of her story are not always clear. How does your character evolve during the course of the story?
It's a really good question, because I don't know whether in the book, whether you would really argue that O'Brien does evolve much. I think his interest in Winston is genuine. I think he does actually. I think he is kind of interested in the psychology and the behaviour of the people who he has to convert, or who he has to put through this horrible process. So I think when he says that he finds Winston's mind interesting, I think that's true. So for me, in our version of the show, because we tried to find the tiniest seed of hope, that, in some ways people have argued is there in the book, in if you talk to people about what the epilogue means and all that kind of thing. But so for me, I think that there is a tiny grain of O'Brien that sees what happens to Winston, and sees what happens to Julia, and sees how they interact at the end. And there is still like a tiny shred of humanity in him that has a doubt, or that there is a grain of doubt there. And I get to deliver these last few lines to the audience at the end of the show, and that is what helps me deliver those last few lines, is to kind of suggest to them that this story is a warning from the future, and that at this moment in time we could turn things around. What's your favourite moment in the show?
My favourite moment in the show is... Good question. There's a lot of favourite moments in the show. There's a moment when he realises that he's been played. And not that he personally has been played, that he's part of a circulation where everything is being played. That just hits quite hard. And I think the audience are with Winston so much so often that you see the audience realise that at the same time, which is it's a big moment, I think, to watch a whole audience just go, wait a minute, oh, okay. So yeah, I think that's my favourite moment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What's your favourite moment in the show?
Oh, that's a really, really tough and good question. Does it have to be about Julia, or just generally about just generally in the show? Because obviously we play other parts in the show as well, mainly puppeteered. So one of my favourite bits to do is I like to play the old prol, because I'm really pleased with the puppet that I made for him, and he has just this really funny speech, which is so random, really, and quite incongruous, and it sort of jolts you out, and that's what we meant it to do, because it jolts Winston out a little bit as well. So that's one of my favourite bits to do. One of my favourite moments for Julia, I think, is when she's coaxing Winston out of his party shell. Like, I feel like he's like a little clam in a little shut clamshell, and she just like teases him out of the clamshell. And that's the scene in the woods when they've met, but they don't know each other. And that's the scene where they agree to meet in the woods. So that's probably one of my favourite bits for her. What's your favourite moment in the show?
Like everybody else has said, I think that's a really difficult question because there are some lovely moments in this show and there are some lovely pictures. I think for a moment that I'm not involved in, I really like the point when Winston and Julia meet in the woods. They've been to Victory Square and he's kind of had this sudden realization that she doesn't hate him and that they're gonna make some kind of connection. So she goes to meet him in this secret location that she's given him instructions of how to reach. And I'm not in that scene at all. So I'm usually listening to it from the back. But I just think that because the set that we've made is quite industrial and quite hard-edged, I really, really like the fact that we've managed to get a softer picture out of it and that you do get this sense of the trees. And I just love the human moment of that bit of the show. You need it at that point because you've had so much of this kind of harsh regime and these voiceovers and the noise of Big Brother. So you really need this moment of human connection. And it looks really pretty. I really love the way that my fellow performers do it. And I love the way it looks as well. And when we get it lit really nicely with a bit of breakup, it's just a lovely moment. For a bit that I perform, perhaps perversely, I really enjoy Room 101. You know, I suddenly get to have this wonderful moment as a performer where I basically have the run of the stage and you're completely in command of what's going on and you're just allowed to go a little bit crazy, which is always fun.
Thank you very much.
So there we go. Hopefully a little bit of an insight into what we make of the characters and how we find our way into the characters, which I know, you know, we get asked questions a lot at the end of the show, but we don't always have time to have huge conversations with people and stuff like that. And people do ask us about the background of creating the show. So yeah, we thought that might be.
Small disclaimer, I suppose, if you have found this video because you are studying 1984, the book, please don't take what we say as gospel truth. It's our interpretation of the characters. Don't write certain things about the personality in your exam paper and expect them to be what Orwell wrote. You better go back to the book to check, but hopefully it was still interesting for you. Mm-hmm. Just thought I should say that. Don't want to steer anyone
good point. Yeah,
in
we don't want to ruin
direction.
anyone's exams.
No. So we had, going back to the tour, we had a really, really lovely tour generally. I think the last time we spoke to you, we were at the North Wall Arts Centre in Oxford. I'm pretty sure that's where we were filming.
I think you're right, yeah. And maybe we were about halfway through?
I don't know, yes. We'd certainly started. I think we'd maybe just under halfway through.
So we had a lot more venues to go, and I'm very happy to say that we continue to have a really lovely, lovely time.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone who came.
It's been brilliant. We went to some great spaces and had some absolutely fantastic audiences, and the show has gone down brilliantly. The response to it has been just fantastic.
Yeah, I think I've got over 5 pages at least of audience feedback just from comments from social media and things, and so lovely.
Worth saying that although we're working on something new right now, the show will tour again.
Yes, next year the show will tour again at around a similar sort of time. I think we're starting slightly earlier next year, and we should be visiting some different places. So if you were unable to catch a show this time around, then hopefully there'll be something for you next year. Mm-hmm. But just before we close out for today, our Edinburgh Fringe show for this year is now on sale. We're very excited. I have absolutely no idea whether we've actually ever announced the title on here or not. But
let's say not.
Let's say not. So the title for the show, which is based on Edgar Allan Poe, is
A Ghost Among the Living.
Hopefully Noel will have put a poster up now on the screen for you. We will be in Edinburgh, as always, for the whole festival, the whole month, at Queen Dome this
so
year.
if you've seen us there before and in the last few years, and we've been at the Pleasance Courtyard in above, we've moved slightly this time, so we're in the Pleasance Dome. Queen Dome.
Yes, Queen Dome at 12:25 every day.
Yep.
And we are very excited. The show is written, is designed, it's all underway.
Yeah.
Got a lot of making, a lot of papier-mâché, etc. still to go, but we're very much looking forward to getting stuck into that one, which I think is going to be a fun tale.
Yeah. We've just got a brief pause in the middle now because in a couple of days' time we board the Queen Mary 2 once again. So we'll be performing Gulliver's Travels and A Picture of Dorian Gray on board that ship for the next couple of weeks.
Yes, so that's what we've been doing this last week. Having finished 1984, we've been rehearsing those two shows, but without any stuff, without any set puppets, props, because all of them, if you remember, boarded the ship in January.
Yeah.
So they've toured the world, the puppets and the props and everything. And I've been sort of doing a little update on Instagram about where they've been. They've been to some great places, those puppets.
I know, I'm jealous.
But we get reunited with them on Monday. So although we leave on Saturday, we don't actually get onto the ship until Monday in Cape Town.
And if all of that sounds a little bit confusing, then think how we feel.
Yes.
So we've gone from that one show, rehearsing these two. We'll do those. And then actually the nice thing is that while we're on board the ship, I think we will have time to think about the Poe, the Ghost Among the Living, the new show, and work on that a little bit as well.
We
and
will
then we'll
use
be
any
straight
free
into
moments,
that
won't we?
when we get back. Yeah.
Exactly. So, as always, if you are enjoying our vlogs, please do give us a thumbs up, leave us any comments, any questions that you might have, and subscribe to the channel. And please do book your tickets for this year's Edinburgh Fringe. We would love to see you there. Try that again.